Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We'd like to welcome you along for this day two of the World Vape Show and the first panel discussion of the day. I'd like to introduce Jamal Bashir, the Group Managing Director of ANS, Fred Roeder, Managing Director of the Consumer Choice Centre, and also Coco Lee, who's the Marketing Manager for iMiracle Limited. Today, the discussion is based around how is vaping changing the landscape of smoking and how is the industry working towards meeting its SDG goals, and also what are the ethical commitments companies should be focusing on in the vape sector. I suppose to start this off, it's probably something for an open discussion. Maybe Jamal, you might start on this. First question is, how do you see vaping is changing the landscape of smoking? What's your viewpoint on that?
The vaping category is coming in as a category that has a lot of potential for harm reduction overall. There has been quite a few nicotine replacement therapies that are available in the market that didn't meet the consumer demand and did not have as much attraction as the vaping category. The vaping category came in with a lot of products to offer, a lot of different shapes, sizes, formats, flavors, nicotine delivery that meets different consumer needs. And consumers find it easier to convert from smoking into one of these vaping products, hence bringing in the potential for harm reduction overall.
Coco, what's your view on that? How do you see it from maybe your company's point of view? How is vaping changing smoking overall?
All right, so firstly, we are so glad to see the industry is thrive. But there are so many challenges we are processing and we are growing. So there will be so many challenges and so many difficulties for us. So I believe the first thing we need to do is we have to follow the regulations and the policies. We do need policies to control the business and to ask the companies and also the other brands to follow the regulations. That's why I think the industry should grow in a healthy way and in a good way.
Okay, very good. Fred, I suppose same question to you, coming from your neck of the woods.
Yes, as an ex-smoker who has tried many times to quit, there was really only e-cigarettes and pouches that helped me to fully go away from cigarettes and not being a dual user anymore. The innovation which happened, like thanks to private entrepreneurs, that has probably created the best smoking cessation program in human history. I mean, public health groups and governments have tried to reduce and bring smoking down to zero, which hasn't really worked. And these new technologies actually allow consumers to consume nicotine without without most of the really bad effects of combustible cigarettes. So that's an amazing achievement, and data also shows that. If you look at countries like the UK or Sweden that really embrace tobacco harm reduction, you see smoking rates have been declining much more than in countries where vaping and other harm reduction methods are either outlawed or much more regulated than cigarettes. So the innovation is great, and it's still a very nascent industry. And as a consumer, I'm looking forward to even better and newer things.
Very good. I suppose that first question probably leads me on to a second question, which is, with vaping being around now nearly over 15 years now at this stage, and as you said, smoking rates are dropping rapidly where vaping is very prevalent. My question is, why is there not more smokers vaping? Why is there not more people switching over? Now, I know we can talk about regulatory and governments and pharmaceutical, and we can go down that, but I suppose, Jamal, from your point of view, you would think because vaping scientifically 95% less harmful, all the scientific data we have there supports what we are trying to say to smokers, but we're just not getting that penetration. I know some markets have it, the UK, even Ireland, where I'm from, we have a decent vaping population, but still, for me, I just can't understand why it hasn't accelerated even more.
Yeah, there are quite a few challenges facing the vaping industry. And all the challenges starts from two main pillars, which is the taxation policy and the regulatory framework. These two everything, all the different issues or challenges that are facing the vaping industry boils down from these two pillars, be it illicit trade or be it environment impact or even youth prevention, or as you mentioned, the facilitation of conversion from smoking cigarettes to alternative nicotine products. In an environment of high taxation, ridiculously high taxation, usually this environment is coupled with high illicit trade. And when the illicit business flourishes, products pricing becomes attractive to youth or becomes accessible to youth. And the flavors that are usually banned, like candy flavors, chocolate flavors, all these kinds of flavors that are attractive for young people become widely available despite that they are banned. It's in the hands of the regulator to facilitate the conversion to smokers into one of these novel tobacco products. The solution of all of these issues, the speed of conversion starts when the regulator looks at the category from a different perspective than that used to look at conventional cigarettes. This is the starting point on how fast we can make all of this population move into reduced risk products.
Yes, and I agree with you, and I do think that they need to look at it from a different viewpoint. The viewpoint they look at it now, and I'm speaking from an Irish point of view with our government, because we just had a recent bill that just went through, a new public health bill in relation to vaping, but no major changes. But they look at where they say, we don't know the long-term effects of vaping, but they put a full stop then, you know. We know the long-term effects of smoking, and we know that vaping is 95% less harmful. So, as I always say to them, you don't need to be a genius to work out which one is better, you know. Coco, I suppose from your point of view, what would you see as, maybe from your company or from your viewpoint, the biggest challenges the vaping industry is coming up against at the moment?
I believe smoking and vaping are not in the opposite way. We are not fighting people who smoking, but I believe vaping is more like a lifestyle. We are changing people how to enjoy life and how to, you know, to change your life more healthier, more a better lifestyle to give to our users. So. Talking to the why vaping's population is growing day by day, I believe it is not a thing we need to, you know, we need to control. This is a thing our industry will need to do more for our users and to have a better innovations, more higher technology and more products to meet our users' demand.
And Fred, I suppose the same question for you, but obviously coming from your
multifactorial answer. Yeah, I mean the affordability of less risk containing nicotine products is definitely one thing. I mean, in healthcare you would call that equity to nicotine maybe. But there are more points. It's not just the fiscal part. So let's look at ignorance and misinformation. The misconceptions around a couple of things. So first of all, most consumers, but even medical doctors, public health groups, and regulators put nicotine and tobacco, combustible tobacco, in one pot. Yeah, I mean, we actually did some scientific polling and focus groups in Germany and France, and asked medical doctors, family doctors, does nicotine cause cancer? And 75% of them told us yes. That was just wrong. I mean, most doctors are not scientists. You know, they went to university 10, 20, 30 years ago, and they don't have the knowledge actually that is needed these days to navigate a smoker to less harmful ways. But also, a lot of current smokers, consumers, often think that vaping or snus is actually less healthy or even more harmful than traditional cigarettes. So there's definitely a lack of information, and the scientific information often doesn't make it to the decision makers, and consumers are also decision makers, right? Because you have many countries where these products are legal, but still the majority of nicotine consumers are using combustible cigarettes. And that's definitely a problem. Obviously, it doesn't make it easier that many social media platforms make it hard to push this scientific information to consumers. There's a lot of self-censorship, and then marketing restrictions also don't make it easier. But my main mission is usually at every dinner party when there's a medical doctor to probe what do you think, and usually they say something really bad, and then I literally bombard them with scientific literature because then it's hard for them to oppose it. But then you also have the path dependency of public health groups that kind of declared they want smoking, and they do not accept that nicotine is not the enemy. Right now, it used to be a war on smoking, and now it's just a wide war on anything containing nicotine, right? And obviously, then you have more like nuanced misconceptions around this terrible issue of EVALI we all had to deal with a couple of years ago, which was an illicit THC product in the US that caused this problem. But unfortunately, most media outlets and don't really want to, apply this intellectual honesty on making distinction between illicit products, which were not even nicotine products, but THC products, and actually legal, safe, regulated products.
Yeah, you're right. And I think this leads me to the next question, which is, I suppose it's a question for all of you. Maybe Coco, you might take this from first. Is I personally feel like, obviously I have a vape business in Ireland, but I do advocacy as well, trying to get the science and the facts and the data and get the information to the government officials. But I suppose one of the biggest challenges we face, all of us, is misinformation. So I suppose, Coco, in your view, what do you feel might be one of the biggest misinformation that's out there in relation to vaping?
Do you mean the missing information to the
Information that's wrong or not credible or not backed up on science?
Right. So actually, we have done a few research about a target audience in the UK, and we have the research about why people choose to use the vape products, and why people choose to transfer from cigarettes to the disposal products or the refill pulp systems. And the final result is that some of the users do influenced by the social media contents. They see a lot of products. They have different kinds of flavors that really interest them. So I believe the brands are trying to deliver different kinds of information about our products or about the flavors and about their brand images, but they probably used a different kind of way. They should, for example, take Alpha as an example. We don't use social media to promote our products. We don't use social media to promote our flavors, and also we won't use influencers since a few years ago. So I believe these are the misunderstanding about information to deliver information to our users. So this is probably the misunderstanding with how brands or how industries to promote their products or to deliver their information to the users or to the target audience.
Okay. I suppose, Fred, you already touched on a couple of misinformations there. Is there any more you could expand on? I suppose you could probably talk about them all day, but
many, but
probably the key ones that you find at the moment.
The key ones that are really disturbing on what wrong facts or like unfacts are being pushed. I mean, one thing is that flavors are always only seen as something to attract underage consumers, which is just not the case. I mean, you can talk to 55-year-old smokers that have been smoking for 40 years that actually like sweet flavors or cucumber flavors. And from what we looked at, is actually 2/3 of vapers prefer flavors that are non-tobacco flavors. So by banning flavors, you actually potentially push 2/3 of current vapers back to cigarettes. Because people want to have nicotine and they want to get that nicotine kick. So flavors do matter. They also do matter to adults. Obviously, there can be more responsible marketing of flavors, and I think that's something like a cycle most parts of industry have gone through, to maybe not call it super sweet unicorn, rainbow flowers, sweet, cute flavor, but being a bit more decent with the names, just because you don't want to wake the sleeping dogs of the regulators who say, oh my God, see, this has only been done to attract kids. So flavors do matter. But then another big issue is always this non-argument of the so-called gateway myth, that a lot of opponents of tobacco harm reduction say, oh, you have these, yes, we agree, these products are less harmful, but once people start vaping, they will start using cigarettes. I mean, this is factually not correct. Yes, there are new people that maybe 10 years ago they would have smoked cigarettes and now they vape, but that's actually a good achievement. That shows it's a successful smoking cessation and smoking substitution technology, and we should be happy about every person that doesn't smoke. And it's just like some arguments being thrown into the room. I mean, just to provide like some more evidence on really what harm reduction does. If you look at a country like Sweden, which has been traditionally good on tobacco harm reduction, especially with oral nicotine, snus, how they call it in Sweden, but recently also more and more on vaping. Sweden is the first country in the world that achieves this year a smoking rate of around 5% of adult population. So it's de facto smoke-free. And that is something that should be celebrated, especially neighboring countries have much higher smoking rates and the decline is much slower than in Sweden. And I'm by background a health economist, so actually I looked at the lung cancer rates among male population, and Sweden has per 100,000 inhabitants about only a third of the annual lung cancer cases as, for instance, another European country, which is Hungary. And Hungary has one of the worst regulation on vaping. Flavor bans, very hard to access, and you actually see what that does. It does make more people sick, bad regulation, more people die. It's a higher burden on the public health systems. So we should really embrace harm reduction as a win-win situation for governments, public finances, and healthier consumers.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I think the flavors is a huge topic. We know flavors is always something the government are talking about, and you know, as I always, in my counter-argument when I get that flavour statement is, you know, look at Nicorette. There's no tobacco flavour in Nicorette. It's mint, berries, everything else, you know what I mean? So there's a reason for that. It's not just in vaping, it's in NRT. Jamal, just yourself on that question as well, probably from your point of view and in the area that you cover, your biggest challenges, I'm sure you have many. What would be your biggest challenges in relation to?
Despite the fact that the category is booming in the MENA region, still, the nicotine consumption is more than 90% coming from conventional cigarettes. And the reason to why people convert from conventional cigarettes to vaping products is predominantly the flavors that they are getting, which means that this conversion is not science-based, it's not a harm reduction-based. It opens the door for new flavors, for new experiences, and that's why consumers move to it. Now, the reason to why this is happening is because the perception about vaping is based on rumors, based on personal interpretation, is open for discussion between people rather than being based on science, rather than being based on harm reduction. The simple fact that vaping products contains 95% less constituents, harmful constituents, versus cigarette smoking is not a widely acceptable fact as yet. And again, this is where I need to bring back the regulator, because they are the ones that play the major role in taking this region and presenting this information to smokers so that as many people could be informed scientifically and could make the educated decision on why they need to be moving from smoking to better alternatives.
And in relation to science then, just because you touched on it there, I find myself with obviously the UK are miles ahead of everybody because they're actively watching what they say, because they've said it's 95%. They want to continually keep proving that that's correct. And my opinion is, it's a very simple opinion, is I wish the Irish government would just ask the UK for all the documents, you know, have a look at them and then agree with them. But as you said, even the 95%, which we know is science-based, is still argued all the time by people. I just don't understand it. And I think, as you said as well, in relation to people's opinions and people's stories, opinions obviously matter. We all have opinions on vaping here. But for me, I always say the only thing that beats science is better science. That's it. Not my opinion, not yours, not yours. Just science is where we need to go. And unfortunately, I don't know when we're going to get there, but hopefully it's soon enough. Okay, I'm going to jump onto this one now. Next question will be, so obviously we touched on a very big topic with misinformation. I think the next biggest topic, I suppose, throughout this sector is youth vaping. I suppose, Fred, maybe if I could jump in with you there and race to youth vaping. I know sometimes it can be exasperated and people can cherry pick the figures the way they want.
So while I do not endorse underage vaping because it's illegal, most countries have a regulation what age you're allowed to vape, and that's something sellers, retailers, manufacturers should also work on enforcing, because it will be bad for the category if they don't enforce it, because that will just call for further bans and restrictions for adult consumers. On the other hand, I would say, you know, as a father, I would prefer my child to vape than smoking a cigarette. Ideally nothing, but the massive outcry of youth vaping is, yeah, kids don't smoke cigarettes anymore, but they vape, which is better than smoking cigarettes. Ideally, they don't do anything, but that's a bit about parenting and enforcing sales at the point of sales, like age restrictions, which is important, but it's still better that underage people, ideally they don't do anything because they're not allowed to, but if they consume nicotine, if they consume it safer than smoking a cigarette, that's actually nothing bad.
And do you think, I suppose my viewpoint is similar to yours, where there's so many people vaping now in the world. When I was younger, everybody smoked. So I smoked. It looked cool. You had a smoke behind the schoolyard or whatever. Now there's a huge percentage of population vaping. So it's just becoming more normalized, I suppose. You know what I mean? So for me, that's probably a reason why young people look at their parents or look at adults and they always want to do what they want to do, whether that's drinking or whatever. So I think for me, that's one of the reasons why vaping is catching on. But as you said, you're right, is that, you know, I've a couple of kids. If I had to choose between smoking and vaping, we know we pick vaping all day long. Coco, I suppose the same question to you in relation to youth use. You know, what do you think the industry is doing well, and what do you think we're not doing well when it comes to underage vaping?
I think another way to protect minors or protect children from vaping is a long history thing. Industry or the brands or the companies from decades ago, they are trying to stop the minors from vaping or from to use the cigarettes. So I believe this is a huge story, and this is a huge problem for the whole industry and for all of our brands. So that's why we have minor protection programs, and that's why we have the children protection sign on the package or on the products. So we do lack a lot of efforts for now, but I believe there are so many changes during the industry process. So there are a lot of things we can do.
Okay, thank you. I suppose, Jamal, the same question to you in relation to youth use. And believe it or not, Ireland, it's still not illegal to sell to under 18s in Ireland. The bill only came in last week.
It is illegal.
We're fighting for it since 2015, and it's still not legal yet because it still has a few months to go. So we're a long time behind everybody else.
Yeah. Look, my position on that is that vaping is not a trend nor a lifestyle, right? And I would have to disagree that I wouldn't want my kids to touch neither a cigarette nor a vape. The best thing to do is to exit the category overall, right? But the matter of the fact is that there are 1 billion smokers globally, and the number is growing, right? What are we going to do about these people, right? Vaping is initially for these specific people that wish to move to reduced risk products. It's as simple as that. Now, we need to be very careful on why youth or why underage choose to pick up vapes. It's for the reasons that we discussed. But also on top of that, there is a very important reason, which is taxation and illicit trade that comes in. Illicit trade, as it flourishes, I mentioned it earlier, it brings in many flavors that manufacturers continue to produce despite the fact that it is a clear-cut attraction to children. Why would you produce a chocolate flavor? Why would you produce a cheesecake or a bubblegum flavor? Why would you produce a product with a packaging that has cartoons on it? Are we talking to adult smokers when we put cartoons on the packaging? I don't think so. So it's a balance of both, that we need to make sure that illicit is stopped by having the right taxation policy. And as a manufacturer, we need to make sure that the products that we are producing, be it in their format, in their shape, and the flavors, and the packaging, and the communication, and the way we advertise using young people trendy people, that all of this communication is not talking to our children. And this is where the solution begins.
Yeah, no, I agree with you fully. And I think, as you said, in every country, there's rogue, as I call them, rogue retailers who are putting profit above safety. And they're bringing in illicit products. We don't know what's in them. They're not regulated. And I suppose, just to touch on the last point you said there, like, even though we have regulation in most countries now, the regulation for me sometimes doesn't go far enough for me in relation to what you said, like, as you said, cartoon pictures. But me, I definitely feel there's an onus on the industry nearly to self-regulate itself. You know, that people don't do. I mean, the shop owners, the people who are selling these products, and the manufacturers, I think there's an onus on them. You know, as you said, when you see these 10ml bottles and it has a picture of a cartoon, like, it just, and as I always say about the government at home, they have one stick for vaping, don't give them another one.
Yeah.
You know, leave it be. This brings me on to another topic. We have a lot of hot topics at the moment. Obviously, it's a very volatile industry. I suppose the next one is sustainability. We all know the issues with disposables throughout the world, and we, again, I'm speaking from my own experience in Ireland. Our government put a consultation last week, the day after the bill came out, a consultation process to ban disposables. So that's what they're looking at now from an environmental point of view. Jamal, I'll talk to you because I know you have a very innovative product out at the moment. So suppose when you look at when you look at recycling in general, you know, what more can we do? What more can manufacturers do? And maybe outline a bit about your own innovative product that you have.
Yeah. Wherever possible, manufacturers need to invest in R&D and in creating products that are recyclable, that are environment friendly. As you said, we have taken the first steps into launching in the United Kingdom a product that is more than 99% recyclable. However, creating the recyclable product, the product is called Slicks. It's available in the United Kingdom. Creating this product is not enough. It needs to be coupled with a recycling program to take it back from the consumer, to recycle it, and to reuse the material that's being produced. And the consumer themselves need to also be incentivized to actually go through the recycling program. And usually the incentive needs to be on its core, what it serves, to be environment friendly. But are we there yet with consumers or not is still a question to ask. On another note, I always take back these discussions to regulators because they can always pitch in by giving companies potentially a differentiated treatment based on their portfolio, based on their environment impact or footprint, where companies can be encouraged to walk down these paths more frequently, instead of a switch of a button to ban disposable overall. Encourage companies to move their portfolio from what they have now to something that's more sustainable.
Yes, I agree with you, and that is where we're going to have to get to, hopefully, at some stage soon. Coco, I suppose from your experience with your brand and your products, obviously, as you know, it's a very hot topic about recycling. You know, what's your viewpoint, or what's the company's view on?
All right, so like we said previously, we do make a lot of efforts on to protect the miners and also do recycling. But Elf Bar has already done a lot of activities on recycling since last year. And for example, we already meet the WVS and also collaborate with the ERP. And also we have cooperated with like 3,000 stores to do the recycling in Romania and also the other countries in Europe. So this is what I think as a brand or as a manufacturer or as a one of the members of the industry should do. And also I think Elf Bar, as the manager of Elf Bar, I think Elf Bar is targeting to do more work on recycle and for the best of the sustainability and also for the safety of the human, also for the society and the environment, we should do more.
Okay. Fred, your viewpoint on the
disposables are a blessing, first of all. I know there's lots of self-critique even among the industry, but if you just look at the consumer case of a disposable, okay? Let's say you have your pot system, fairly weak battery, you're planning an evening out, and one of the worst things for someone who's recently switched from smoking to vaping is going out with your pod system, you realize the pod is quickly empty or the batteries are empty, all your friends around you in the bar smoke cigarettes, and you switch back to the cigarettes. There are probably many people just currently listening to the session who were in that situation, right? So that's what disposables are a great thing. Right before you go out, either in the restaurant or bar, they sell disposables to you. So you have the availability of something. You don't need to have a full system to kind of repower it or power it again. Or just on your way before you meet your friends, you grab a 600 or 1500 puff thing that whose battery will last for it. So especially in these situations, or when you're on the road or you need so many other things to charge right now, disposables have a very good filler situations for vapors to not lapse back to smoking cigarettes. And that's a great thing. The environmental concerns are there. Probably like a subscription model, like through online sales where once a month you get it's the same for pots, right? Ideally you get them shipped once a month to you, as many as you need for a month. At the same time, shipping company picks up the old ones, right? Especially to deal with batteries. I've seen some innovations where you have like a magnetic system where you basically always only get a new cartridge and there's a battery, which is like a second part which you actually keep. Because I think the biggest environmental concern are like lithium batteries ending up in normal trash, right? This is kind of, I think, what really triggers people. But in all of these concerns, I would not just give in all the time to every environmentalist that complaints about disposables, but also show the benefits of disposables and having maybe sometimes a humans first approach, like making sure people can quit smoking is a really, really big, amazing achievement. And then, yes, afterwards we can figure out how to be more sustainable with disposables. And usually the price system should also do this. I mean, right now it's still a really fragmented market. Establishing recycling schemes in a market where, I mean, you see how many exhibitors you have in this hall, right? Yeah. Trying to establish a recycling system in a country of 10 million where you have 100 different companies or 200 different companies offering products is just not really viable. Yeah? You probably need a bit more consolidation before you can really do this. And in the area of like coffee capsules, you see these schemes, right? Because you have more duopoly in this, and then different providers actually develop their systems because that's also financially sound.
Yeah, I suppose with the sustainability, it's a huge thing at home for us at the moment. Now, we set up a project and an initiative last year with disposables. So we have one company that, we're lucky, we have one company who covers the battery and the electrical items. So we've set that up now probably 8 months ago, but the take back is not big. We did a survey in some colleges, which college age group is probably the most disposable users. And 76% just didn't know that they could return it. They didn't know it could be recycled. 54% are throwing it into the normal bin. So again, like vaping itself, I think education, awareness, creating that awareness about, and obviously making your products more recyclable and more sustainable. Just the last point, I always find funny when the government are coming out going to me and everybody, we're going to ban disposables, the environment. 52% of all the litter in Ireland is cigarette butts, you know, but they leave them alone, you know. Sorry, next question. Coco, I'm going to put you on the spot now, unfortunately. Just in relation to the challenges your company faced this year, I'm not trying to go in, but just how did you manage that? You know, with the overfilling in the UK and, you know, the couple of issues with that. How did you manage that? And well, obviously it's something that's rectified now, but was it hard to manage that and hard to get through that as a challenge for your own company?
All right, so that is a really hard question to answer, but I'm not prepared to answer here. But if you ask, that is really a huge task for us for this year. And we're facing a lot in the UK market and also to the whole market for Elf Bar and also for the company. We actually did a lot of work within the company. We already checked all our cooperators, the factories. We already check all the products with issues on it. We already changed our product and replaced all the products that is overfilled in the UK market. And also we did it really quick. We finished the replacement within a month, and also we answer all the questions to the media. And also work with the UK VIA and all the other association in the UK market, and also work with the MHRA and follow the regulations to do all the changes, and also we actually have an inner a kind of inner regulation in our company to to stop the things happen again. So yes, we were facing a lot, but everything happened or everything these challenges will help us to improve and help us to grow. I think that's a task or a lesson for the whole industry. This is not only for Alphabet, but also for the other brands. I think all the brands should learn from that, and all the brands too. We have to improve together. We have to learn together.
Yes, and I'm sorry for putting you on the spot. It's just because you were here, and listen, we all know many other brands were having the same issues. They just
I know many people want to ask.
They just didn't get the publicity that your brand got. So I wasn't picking on you there. I was only asking that question. I suppose one last question. Sorry, Fred.
I mean, just actually on the sustainability issue, but just really also it's in there. So in Europe, where I think with this new plastics directive, disposables are on the line of fire. But at the same time, in the European Union and the UK still inherited a limit of 20 ml. I think it's 20 ml.
20 ml,
right?
yeah.
So it's impossible for it to have a disposable that has 3 or 5 or 10,000. I've seen somewhere here puffs, which would be probably better for the environment.
Sorry, it's 2 ml. 2 ml and 20 milligrams.
20 milligrams, yes. So, but these 2 ml basically get you 600 puffs, if at all. Right? That's what they say, but probably it's 300.
300.
Yeah. So that obviously also leads to more waste. I mean, that's actually one of the results of the strict regulation is that a heavy vapor needs to have 2 disposables a day, probably, right? Instead of having a device that maybe lasts for a week, which some of them are available in this country here, which already reduces waste by a lot, right? So this is just also, a lot of the waste is actually created because of rules that don't even really make sense. What does this 2 ml limit, how should it stop people from consuming nicotine, right? It just creates more cost and it's bad for the environment.
Yeah, no, you're right. And as you said, it is something that maybe the regulators need to look at. As you said, if it was 6 mil or 10 mil, then we wouldn't need to have so many being thrown around the streets. I'm going to finish up with just one more question. We touched on it earlier on, Jamal. I'll probably go back to you first again. Is that I suppose when we look at the sector and the ethical policies that companies or brands have, and you touched on it earlier on with the cartoon-like things, excuse me. So, in your view, apart from that, what do we feel companies are doing wrong, and maybe what are we doing right when it comes to ethical views and our moral views when it comes to the consumer and what we place on the market?
The big bold statement that we're doing right is trying to move smokers to better alternatives, right? Along the way, some of the practices that we need to ensure that we stay away from or we are very mindful of is all the issues that has been discussed during this discussion, including youth vape, including the packaging that we use, the flavors that we produce, the formats and the products that we bring into the market. Always ask ourselves who will be attracted to these kinds of products. Is it really designed for a smoker, or is it designed for a future consumer, let's say? So these are some key questions. One more thing is, especially in our region, I see it quite often, is to adhere to local rules and regulations as opposed to finding ways around them, right?
Yeah.
And this is very important. Fighting illicit trade as an industry is a key component. One of the ways is isolating retailers that are engaged in these activities, is not allowing companies to go into these activities. And it goes back as well to the taxation policy that needs to be discussed with the regulator.
Yes. Coco, your view on maybe not your own brand, what you see in the industry, on your travels or what you see around there. Do you see anything that you sort of go, maybe, oh, that's wrong or that's good? Like, what's your view on what maybe some brands or some companies are doing in the wrong way?
All right, that's another tricky question. But I want to say there are so many things that the industry shouldn't do. For example, we promote a lot about the products. We have so many flavors that with Euro names like the candy names, and also the Swiss names, and also some of the products or the country effects, they copy their other brands, they copy their products with their designs. That's all the things we shouldn't do as a ethical brand or a company.
Okay, thanks very much. Fred, from a consumer point of view, when they look at vaping companies, do you hear, excuse me again, do you hear back, oh God, I can't believe what that company's doing or what that brand is doing?
So sometimes it's a bit hard to say if I just got an illicit product where the batteries just stopped working after 3 puffs, or if it's just really bad quality from legit manufacturer. But I mean, it's really hard sometimes for consumers to understand to which point of sale to trust. Right? I mean, ideally, I would want to buy actual products directly from the companies through like e-commerce, so I actually know it comes from the company. Because if you go, and that's not just here, that's also my home country, Germany. You know, you spend 12 euros for an Elf bar and it stops working after 5 minutes because apparently it was not an Elf bar. And that's not just expensive as a consumer, but also actually a bit worrisome. Yeah, okay, what's the quality of what I'm having here? And the penetration of like bad actors or this illegal products making it to kiosks and other points of sales is high, which is concerning. And I always hope that law enforcement and industry help to clean this up, which would be good for everyone, except the bad actors.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's just definitely a big concern. And then, I mean, as a consumer, I just want to have the best product, right? And always worried when I see different companies fighting against the technology of the other company. This is ultimately something consumers should decide in the marketplace, and not happen through like lobbying from one company against the product of the other. I think that's more like in the past, 5 to 10 years ago, where there was like this big battle, is it like heated or liquid? And I think now everyone is a bit more open to all technologies, which is good for consumers, because we don't know what the next thing is. You know, right now it's vaping, heated, and oral tobacco, but maybe in 5 years we'll all sit here and talk about a totally new nicotine delivery technology that's proven to be even better.
Yeah, thanks for that, Fred. I suppose that's the end of our discussion, folks. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Some very current and topical topics that we have at the moment, and as we all agree, we've many challenges now, and I'm sure we're going to have many more. I'd like to give thanks to my panel: Jamal Bashir, the Group Managing Director of ANS; Coco Lee, Marketing Manager for Heavenly Gifts; and Fred Roller, he's the Managing Director of Consumer Choice in America. Thanks very much, folks.